Good evening. This is our third seminar we've done so far this year. And tonight our guest is someone really, really close to Brian and I. And no, literally, he's really, really close to I. It's our next door neighbor, Jon Schultz, who's a wonderful physical therapist. I can say that because Jon has helped me with some physical issues related to a knee injury. And so tonight, the topic is going to be bone health. And four things that happen, four things that people talk about the most: weight loss and diabetes, autoimmune diseases, which seem to be almost, it makes COVID pale in comparison to the amount of folks that are struggling now with autoimmune diseases, which sets people up for the difficulties with COVID. And then finally, osteoporosis, osteopenia, joint pain, back pain. That's a pretty common problem when people walk through the door, and I'm sure Jon's going to talk about that. I've known Jon now for about 3 years, and I've watched his journey from being not just a physical therapist that just treats bodies, but someone that also understands that we're whole people and that we're holistic. We are bodies, but we're also minds, and we're emotions, and also spirit, spirit being who are we, our identity, how we see ourselves. So Jon's going to give us a presentation, and then as usual, we'll open it up to question and answers. And again, thank you all for coming, and look forward to it. Thanks.
All right. Hey, yeah, thanks Tim and Brian for inviting me the long trip from right across next door. Yeah, I'm excited to talk today about bone health and some strategies as far as exercise, weight-bearing exercise, to keep people healthier, also help relieve pain. Before I kind of put the slides up, one thing I will say, I mean, we're going to give advice. We understand that a lot of you are working with therapists or physicians, and this is kind of an educational presentation. We're not saying to stop what they're doing, what you're doing, and do what we're doing. We're just trying to help get some information out there, and then definitely give you a lot of time to answer questions or ask questions if you're willing. But yeah, we'll definitely try to keep it simple, kind of like Healthy for Life says, nutrition made simple. I'm looking at this at trying to keep you healthy physically from a movement exercise as kind of simple as possible, especially with COVID. A lot of the gyms, people aren't comfortable going back to the gyms yet. They, have a lot of questions. They're spending a lot of time on the computer, so there's a lot of postural pain issues. So we'll kind of tap into that. And this subject's near and dear to my heart. I unfortunately lost my father-in-law in December. He fell in the bathroom and broke his hip, had surgery, but was unable to kind of bounce back from that, and unfortunately passed away right around Christmas time, very close to him. So, and I've also had my mother-in-law broke her ankle with a fall a couple of years before that. So again, it's definitely touched my family. It's touched a lot of friends. So again, it's a very salient topic, very critical. And I, like I said, I'm appreciative that Healthy for Life has invited me, and I'm a big fan of all of their minerals and omegas. They have some really good products, which are going to be important for building that bone health. And I know a lot of you are already kind of aware of that. So let's get started. So the way I believe this is going to run, you guys can type in questions. I don't think you're going to be able to ask them, get on the video, directly ask, but you should be able to type them in, and Tim will be monitoring those. So we'll probably hold questions kind of towards the end, and I'll try to move through the presentation fairly quickly. But we want to touch on some spots. We might even cut some out just because we know it's a beautiful day out there. Maybe people are outside exercising, so that's always a good thing. I do want to thank Lifestyle Matrix, which is a company, educational company, that allowed me to use some of these slides that kind of put this bone builder program together. All right. A little bit of my background. I own Optimum Performance Physical Therapy. It's a physical therapy clinic in Urbandale. You know, my mission is to empower patients with injuries or pain to reduce their own physical suffering with fresh hope, kind of take a different approach. I've been a physical therapist 25 years. I was an Army veteran. So I definitely had my share of aches and pains and injuries in the military. Kind of got me interested in physical therapy. I've also trained at Mayo Clinic on chronic pain and a lot of other musculoskeletal issues. But you know, I'm currently located in Urbandale. This is my contact information. I'll also put it up at the end as well. So, you know, what is osteoporosis? I mean, it's literally porous bone. As you can see on the picture on the left with a healthy bone, that bone is it's got a good structural matrix. It's very healthy. It's able to adapt to stress. It's not deteriorated. Unfortunately, osteoporosis is shown on the right, which is really shown with more bone loss and degeneration, which makes the bone very fragile and very, you're going to have higher fracture risk. Here's some stats. I mean, it's really prevalent. You know, up to 4 in 1 women or 1 in 2 women over the age of 50 will potentially break a bone due to osteoporosis. 1 in 4 men, but you know, men can have other issues just related to, you know, I know a lot of men out there and women too are doing a lot of bicycling, which is great for exercise, but a lot of times it doesn't build up the bone density. So when you look at fracture risk, I mean, in women, it's actually greater than heart attack, stroke, and breast cancer combined. Over 300,000 hip fractures happen a year, and 75,000 of those are going to die within the year. And that stat hit home with my father-in-law. And then over half of them never regain the previous function, meaning they have to use a walker, crutches, canes. So that definitely is a very common issue. This is just to show you where the bone density life cycle is. So for men, peak bone occurs around that 30 to 28 age point. You can look at men build, you know, more bone. They have higher bone mass. You know, a lot of that's due to muscle because, you know, again, men have a lot of times more muscle tissue. So that's going to pull more on the bone. Females, similar age where they peak. But again, with menopause, you know, starting in around early 50s, you know, sometimes into the 60s, they're going to lose a lot more bone due to menopause. Some other factors are genetics, how much resistance exercise the person does, and that's what we're going to talk about today. You know, what's their diet consist of? What's protein? You know, how much protein are they getting? Are they getting those key vitamins and minerals? You know, if you guys are Healthy for Life clients, obviously, you're probably looking pretty good there. And then some other factors such as smoking and alcohol. So again, you know, a lot of times bone loss happens earlier than we even really notice. You know, 30 to 45 age, you're actually sometimes resorbing more bone, breaking down more bone than you're forming, and it's kind of a balancing act. The problem is when you break down more bone than you actually form. And that really makes it difficult. Then, you know, you're more risk to fall, when you fall, fracture. So I'm not going to go into a lot of the specifics about osteoclast, osteoblast, but the main point is osteoblasts build bone, increase it, and then osteoclasts kind of actually break down the bone. So that can accelerate the bone loss. So we want to kind of maintain that, and that's important. This just shows kind of that life cycle with osteoporosis. You're breaking down more bone than you're actually depositing. So when you get out of balance, those scales get out of balance, that can be a real issue. Here are some other risk factors. We kind of already touched on that, but low vitamin D and calcium, you know, can be factors that can accelerate osteoporosis. You know, a lot of times now we're Zoom calling, we're sitting for longer times. That's definitely going to impact how we're going to lose muscle mass, which is, you know, going to affect how we are going to build bone. And then obviously age and genetics play a role as well. Here's some secondary factors. You know, women, due to estrogen, some deficiencies and having lower testosterone, that impacts it. Autoimmune disease, RA, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, kidney disease, some of the parathyroid, thyroid, digestive issues such as Crohn's or also IBS, celiac disease. Unfortunately, diabetes impacts it as well. And in medications, we're not going to touch a ton on medications. I think you guys are all aware that there's some side effects, but medications can definitely accelerate some bone loss issues. All right, so we're going to touch a little bit on testing. You know, you look at the picture on the right, that woman is, they call it like kyphosis. She's actually getting shorter. You know, a lot of times we kind of joke about our grandmothers losing 3 or 4 inches. Well, a lot of times this is due, you know, mainly this is due to osteoporosis, where you're getting curvature in the spine, you're losing disc height, you're also losing some of the bone. So that's giving them that stoop posture, kyphosis. And again, we're spending a lot of time, what are we doing right now? My posture is more kyphotic, I'm more bent over. So that definitely can lead to not having good alignment and losing some of that core strength as well. So you can fracture pretty easily lifting, you know, like laundry, you know, bending too much and like shoveling snow. Sometimes that happens as well. You know, and with the symptoms, you get pain, immobility. It can even lead to lower, you know, self-esteem and depression, just because it's hard to break that cycle of pain. Now, you're going to see, you know, the highest risk for fractures is low back and hips, forearms, and wrist. Those are usually where, you know, you have some more accelerated bone loss. Here's some tests. You know, a lot of you have already maybe been through DEXA scans, which look at your bone quality. It's kind of an X-ray comparison. You know, they're going to look at the spine, the hips, the wrist, and that's going to tell you a little bit where you're at. If you look at, they're called T-scores. Kind of the normal T-score is -1 to +4. And they're kind of comparing that to like 30-year-olds. So they compare it against, you know, again, younger people. Now, if your bone density is between -1 and 2.5, that's considered osteopenia, which is kind of before osteoporosis, but that's meaning you're having bone loss, but it's not as severe. You're not as high a risk for fractures. Now, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll take it and they'll compute it into a Z-score. So the Z-score looks at more comparing it to your age and sex because of the differences between male and female. All right, we're going to touch on some treatments for it. And again, I'm not going to go into big specifics, but these are more talking about drugs, biophosphonates that, you know, like Fosamax. And I'm not saying, you know, wrong or right as far as this, you know, if you're working with a physician, you definitely have to, you know, kind of listen to their advice and heed, but you have to be aware that it can deplete nutrients. There are side effects, especially biophosphates with jaw pain. It's fairly rare, but sometimes there's breakdown of the jaw, pain in the muscle and joints. So some of these are fairly common. Some estrogenic agents can cause, you know, deficiencies in vitamin B, vitamin D, folic acid. And then selective estrogen, SERMs, are seen that also cause some side effects. But again, they're not really sure a lot of the specifics on some of the nutrient densities. Corticosteroids, you know, a lot of those are injected into the joints. They can cause definitely some nutrient deficiencies. But we're also looking at proton pump inhibitors for GERD, acid reflux. So just kind of wanted to touch on, this is a lot of times what you're going to get when you get that diagnosis of osteoporosis. So we kind of look at, you know, kind of a more rounded approach, a more kind of holistic approach, something, you know, obviously that Healthy for Life, that my practice kind of advocates. Long-term biophosphate use over 4 years is still, you look at, there's still some fracture risk with that. A lot of times people, and they say like 50 to 75% of people stop taking their medication just because of some of the side effects associated with that. The other important factor is, even though those medicines can help with stopping the accelerate bone loss, the bone quality that is replaced, or again, sometimes the bone loss it's kind of reduced or slowed down, but the bone quality is not really enhanced. So you can still have some real issues that with not laying down, you know, high quality bone density. And, you know, a lot of the Dr. Peskin, I know a lot of you guys are familiar with Dr. Peskin and what he talks about with the omegas. You know, the omegas really help with laying down better bone matrix. This is just kind of showing the peak age. We've kind of seen this before, but you're definitely looking at a big point of the population is going to need some support, you know, through nutrition, through possibly pharmaceuticals, but mainly a lot through exercise and getting the right nutrition and supplementation. All right, we're going to go on to, this is the kind of like what I really wanted to focus on, is we want to really work on building the bone. You know, how can we how can we do that, you know, without creating more pain and creating other issues related to that? So actually Harvard magazine did a, you know, a whole segment, a supplemental special health report on exercises for bone health, really looking at, there's, you know, something called Wolff's Law, where the more stress you apply to the bone, you know, done correctly, it can actually help build that bone activity, that osteoblastic activity, definitely make it stronger. So you're going to have less issues. And we're going to be able to send out, we have a guide, both an exercise guide that's pretty, a PDF that will kind of walk you through a lot of this stuff. And we also have a nutrition guide. So that's something that we're going to send out to everyone as well. Here's a little segment they did talking about urban polling and what we want to kind of talk about the best of using this. Are you hearing this? How's the volume?
Good morning, Jody. Try to think of it as cross-country skiing, but without those skis. The fitness activity uses poles to enhance and correct something we take for granted, walking.
Easy, but rarely do I see anyone walk into my clinic correctly.
Urban polling goes back to the basics, using poles to fix people's posture, tone muscles, and align the body.
Why you see so much lower back pain, knee pain, hip pain. A lot of it is from not walking correctly.
When 20-year walker Cindy Swanson broke her wrist, she came here to heal. I never heard of the fitness activity before.
He said something simple to build those muscles back up and to rehab my wrist with urban polling.
The activity focuses on the inner core muscles that stabilize the hip and pelvis as well as the upper body.
At minimum, when you add poles to your walk, you're burning 20% more calories, up to about 46%, depending on how fast you go.
Picking up the poles myself, I could feel a difference in a matter of minutes.
The great thing about the poles is it gets them out of their mind and they start using their body how it was designed.
I am in love with these poles. I just think it's the greatest thing because it's low impact, it's engaging more muscle groups. Great way to be fit.
Now, studies have shown this type of physical activity helps with people who have orthopedic issues, diabetes, arthritis, and more. The rubber bottoms that you see can come off depending on the climate and environment that you're in, Jody. So if you have them off, you can walk with these on. This is what.
All right. So, that just kind of highlighted urban poles, which KCCI did a feature on me. Man, it's been 18 months, 2 years. It seems like a lot longer ago, but it's something that's really big in like Canada and Europe. Scandinavian countries have been doing it for years. And when you look at their life expectancies, they're pretty good. And actually, they've done a lot of research behind using the poles as far as bone building, vascular metabolic benefits, kind of helping people to retrain the way they're walking. It definitely can help with posture, your alignment, your core, and total body. And the nice thing is it does help in balance and stability. Yeah, it's fun too. It's definitely a fun activity. It can improve your mood. It can get you outside. And I know this is not for everyone, but again, with kind of the theme of nutrition made simple, I really wanted to look at something that's not super equipment intensive, something that most people can kind of do and still, if they have some issues with pain, but combines the aerobic benefit of cross-country skiing and also the benefit of kind of pushing down through the poles because of some of their unique design of the grip. We'll kind of talk about that, which really helps to activate those core muscles, which are critical for keeping your body upright and just any activity. Everyone knows the core is pretty important with that. So there's already 270 studies on PubMed, which is the scientific organization looking at the benefits of Nordic walking. I think people are starting to see people starting to use the poles. I think COVID kind of slowed it down a little bit. We had plans to do it in the malls over the winter, but that was kind of shut down. We had plans to do classes here at my place and around the parks. And again, with COVID, that kind of upended that ability to get it out and start having people become more comfortable and familiar with it. So here's, the big thing is, will Nordic walking, does that help people with osteoporosis? And does it help with their physical function, their posture, their quality of life? And they actually have done a study in Canada. I'll put this on real quick. This it's led by a study in Canada. She's kind of got a thick accent, but this will kind of show you, what they're really working on.
Hello, my name is I'm the principal investigator of the Nordic walking study. Nordic walking study is a randomized controlled exercise intervention for individuals who are at risk of fracture. Exercises include Nordic walking, which is walking with the poles, as well as postural, balance, and muscle strengthening activities, supported with the poles. Exercises occur 3 times a week over 3 months. All sessions are tailored for participants and progressive in nature. In addition to patient representatives, our study team includes healthcare decision makers, healthcare practitioners, and researchers, as well as trainers representing different disciplines. We have also a lot of student volunteers in our team. I'm very grateful to work with this team, and I thank all the participants participating in our Nordic walking study. In addition, I want to thank all our study funders, including Saskatchewan Centre for Patient-Oriented Research, Canadian Institutes of Health Research, Saskatchewan Health Research Foundation, and Royal University Hospital Foundation. Thank you.
My name is Anthony Carrick, and I'm the study coordinator for the Nordic walking study. If you have osteoporosis, hyperkyphosis, or a history of vertebral fracture, and participate in exercises less than once per week, you may be eligible to participate in the Nordic walking study. If so, you may reach me or the principal investigator by email or phone.
Hi, my name is Sueli. I'm a postdoctoral fellow working at the Nordic Walking Study, And in our project that I partnered up with the participants as well as some other stakeholders, we're assessing the implementation of the Nordic walking intervention, which means we're looking at what is working, what is not working, and what can we improve for the.
I'm going to turn up the volume a little bit. Yeah, that can help on some of this. All right. How do I get back there? Okay, good. So, you kind of looked, Canada is definitely ahead of the power curve, and some of the European countries with studying, the benefits of Nordic walking and urban polling. Is it going to become more widespread? I think it will eventually in the US. There's actually 9,000 Nordic walkers in Minnesota, but they have a big Scandinavian, a big, European kind of population up in some of those areas. So while they might not all be using the urban poles, I think they definitely see the benefits of it. And, the number one benefit is it's a full body workout. Normal walking, you're not going to get a lot of upper body involvement. You're not going to get your triceps, some of your forearm flexors, your upper back muscles aren't going to get really used. So the more muscles you can use and employ, then the more ability you're going to have to put more pressure on the bone, and that's going to help build the bone. The bone, bone likes muscle activity. It doesn't like us staying on the couch for a long time. And I know a lot of you guys aren't couch potatoes, but definitely if we're being more sedentary, that's going to cause some issues. Core strength. Let me grab a pole here. The big difference with this pole compared to a lot of poles is the handle. You're going to be able to put more pressure because of this grip right here, the way the handle's formed, and you press down there. That's equivalent. If you take 5,000 steps when you're out walking, that's looking at like 5,000 ab contractions and your lats. Those are some big muscles, your lats, that are really going to help. Number one, it's going to burn some calories. Number two, it's going to put some force on the bone. And then number three is you're getting that core engaged. Now, I realize certain people with shoulder issues might not be able to tolerate this right away, and it might need to be modified, but there are a lot of static exercises that people can still use with the poles, squats, lunges, some other activities that you can do if you don't want to use your arms as vigorous because of some shoulder issues. The other thing is, it can burn low range 20% calories, more, and higher range is up to 46%. That's from the Cooper Institute. So, I mean, that's some significant burn. And again, the less weight you're carrying, every pound you lose is usually equivalent of about 3 pounds of stress off the joints. So that's big. The other thing, when we talk about reducing stress on joints, I have a lot of people who are pending a total hip who get the poles and are, told, hey, we can't do your total hip for maybe several months, or we're going to try to hold off as long as possible, but we want you exercising. Well, exercise hurts when you're waiting on a joint replacement. A lot of times the poles can reduce, they've shown studies of 30 to 40% of weight pressure on certain joints. So that's big, and that can significant reduction in pain. The other thing this cycle shows here, what happens with, they call it the vicious cycle of untreated osteoarthritis. So with joint pain, you're going to have motor dysfunction, meaning you're going to have your muscle tissues are going to be less mobile. So that means the muscles are going to work less. So they're going to shrink in size. You're also going to have more mechanical stress on the joint, the cartilage. The articular cartilage is going to decrease. So that's going to cause problem. And then that's going to release a lot of inflammatory factors. And again, that's going to increase your pain. And this is a vicious cycle that I know some of you are, maybe struggling with. And if we're able, to help you use a tool such as the urban pole, that can be big. A lot of times getting in the water is great. Doing water therapy is awesome. but again, not always accessible for everyone and not always an option. The poles really do help with balance and confidence. You know, some people are like, you know, I would love to walk, but, you know, I'm afraid I might fall. Or, you know, I get tired and fatigued and, you know, I'm worried about pain. So definitely having the poles can form, you know, help improve your confidence in that area. Range of motion. You can definitely increase your stride length. You can get your upper body moving, with, for most people, is an issue. Most people do not move their upper body in relation to their lower body. They're very, okay, they're very limited in that motion. So we definitely want to help increase that motion. Upright posture. That's huge when we talk about kyphosis, osteoporosis, you know, that bent over. A lot of people use rolling walkers. Now, I'm not saying go out and trade your walker for poles, but again, what does a rolling walker do? It hunches you over. It has you bend over. A lot of times these poles, when adequately trained and worked on with a patient, can definitely improve your posture. Also, it's suitable. You know, I have athletes who have plantar fasciitis or want to cross train, don't want to run 4 or 5 days a week anymore, but maybe want to run twice. You know, they might do some Nordic walking, cross country skiing, swimming, and then the other days they train. You know, diabetic patients, you know, that have neuropathy, unable to feel their feet, the poles can be definitely helpful for that. And it's very social. It's nice to get out with a group. With COVID, of course, that's limited. I should have put that picture with mask on, but it definitely is. You can go out with your friends, you can spread out a little bit, and you can get some exercise and get out in nature, which I think is critical. Year round, I use them when I'm snowshoeing. I use them if I'm in the mountains, hiking or around ledges. It's definitely a big ability to use them all year round. You know, right now we're at like 34 minutes. You guys have been really patient. I'm kind of going to just skip through some of the nutritional. We can kind of include these slides on there, but this is stuff a lot of you are already familiar with. You know, because you're Healthy for Life members, or, you know, you're definitely familiar with it. I want to be able to get more to your questions. But one thing that Tim and I definitely talked about before is making sure you get adequate protein intake. A lot of times people, you know, are so focused on, you know, restrictive diets or different type of diets, and they really look at reducing their protein. And that's an important part of building strong bones. Okay. Tim would like to tag on there. I need a break. I was talking so long there. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah. Give John some breath. One of the things that I talk about with our clients that we come in, and people that are patients of doctors and patients of John and things like that, that we don't often think about, and that's what I call lifestyle. Let me give you some nutritional input. What I call these things bone dissolving food. And if you're overdosing on the following foods, you're potentially you're creating an acidic response inside your body. And let me know if any of you have heard of these things. Soft drinks. I can't remember. I grew up on the East Coast. I can't remember if you call them soda here in the Midwest. We used to call it pop. Even diet pop. High acid levels, phosphoric acid in the body. Basically a bone. It eats away bone. It eats everything in our bodies.
Car batteries.
No. Yeah. Excessive caffeine. Caffeine is, most of it's highly acidic, too much of it. So these are lifestyle things, simple things you can do. I'm not telling you have to stop drinking coffee. I drink 1.5 cups every morning, and it's a wonderful experience. I do it looking out the window and watching the snowfall and watching my neighbor slip and slide as he's on his way to work. Hydrogenated oils, and you've heard Brian Peskin, I don't have to go into that. Adulterated oils, Brian will use that term, cook, fried, whatever it is. They're acidic, and they can they can make bone density a very, very difficult thing. Here's one that you might laugh at, and you have to do your own research on this because most of you won't believe me when I say this. Wheat bran. So you can picture this: you're pouring your incredible wheat bran, and then you pour your milk or your, you know, what even your almond milk or something like that, and the wheat bran itself leaches calcium out of the milk. So if you can imagine eating food for the calcium intake, and yet the wheat is eliminating the healthy effects. And John and I talked yesterday at lunchtime: protein, 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 protein. Can't tell you, can't emphasize that enough. And of course, the essential fatty acids, as Brian Peskin says, it's the oils. And again, because every single one of the cells, including the ones in your bone density, contains an omega-6 oil. So I just wanted to give John a break here and also jump in with a little bit of nutrition. So here's the deal. It's open for question and answer. So anything you want, I'm sitting next to John tonight. So if you want to ask me something and John and I something, we'll piggyback. So go ahead. And
I think while they're doing that, maybe we answered all their questions. I mean, that'd be kind of cool. Oh, do we see a question?
There you go.
What is it? Tee it up.
John, here's how soon after compression fracture can I exercise? I had 4 thoracic fractures since 2018. Most recent October 15th and February 11th. Had vertebroplasty on T9, December 15th. Thinks it caused the last fracture on a T6. How soon after the compression fracture can I exercise? Wow.
That's a good question. And now, Pam, I'm really sorry to hear this. This is, I'm sorry, was February 11th, was that your most recent fracture? A lot of times I would get with your doctor, they normally say, what I've heard, 6 to 8 weeks. That's what I see in my practice. But again, everybody's situation's a little bit differently, based on your balance, based on some other health history, cardiac issues and everything like that. But, waiting 6 weeks is normally kind of standard practice. I mean, obviously you can do some seated or some modified exercises probably before that. But, I would really definitely want you to get with whoever's managing your care, either an orthopedic surgeon or like your spine surgeon, and look at that. So hopefully that helps a little bit, Pam. But again, I don't want to contradict any of your doctors. Good balance. No good doctor. Okay. Interesting. Are you here, Pam, are you here in Des Moines? Yes. Okay. Have you been to the osteoarthritis clinic? I think it's right over near like 80 and 35 in Urbandale. Okay. Pam, we might need to get your, why don't we get your information and we'll follow up with you. And we should have all their information, right? Yeah. We'll get in touch with you. Okay.
Okay, John, here's a question. Are calcium supplements a good idea? Ask Melanie.
That's, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I don't want to say a challenging question, but like I said, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a physician. So you'd really have to kind of have your blood work evaluated and look at, what's your nutrition, what's your diet. There's some studies out there that, sometimes we're getting too much calcium. I know Brian Peskin talks a lot about that. But I don't mean to punt that, but Tim, do you have a little, maybe a better answer than I did there?
Yeah, I think, you know, what I just said a little while ago, it's a total, like a holistic approach to this. For instance, the things I gave you, the lifestyle changes, if something is eating away at your body from the inside out because we put too much acid in our bodies, and then we ask these supplements, you can't out supplement that type of choices that we make. And I know it's hard. We're all addicted to sugar. We're all addicted to coffee, et cetera, et cetera. Brian Peskin will talk about building the bone from the inside out. Protein is the macronutrient that is a bone builder. It is a body builder. And essential fatty acids, omega-6 oils, they build from the inside out, the strong bone matrix. I had a situation 2 years ago. We're helping people move, and I fell about 4 feet onto my left hip, and I was 64 years old when that happened. And when I hit the bottom of the truck, I thought, oh God. And yet I got up. I did have a bruise on my hip, but everything was good. Here's an anonymous. What other exercise is good for bone health?
Yeah, I would say, and I brought the old exercise ball, Swiss ball. Might be hard to see here a little bit, but I'm a big fan of just, you know, doing supported like wall squats. You know, anything that you use large muscle groups, like your quads, your glutes, you know, and again, I don't know your situation if you have back pain, or again, I know you're anonymous, which is great, you know, fine. But, you know, you want to use some external support. They used to call these kind of crap outs. Wrestlers used to do them. They'd see how long they could stay in a position like that. So I do like squats. I do feel like an exercise. Is that all right?
They're probably only seeing that screen and not you. You might need to stop your sharing.
Oh, sorry. All right.
There you go.
All right. Sorry. Okay. So I'm back. Hey, here's me. I'm doing some like wall squats using a Swiss ball. I really like this as far as, and you can put a chair out in front of you if you have some other balance issues. There's a number of things that you can do on an exercise ball. And we're going to send out to everyone, if they're okay with it, a PDF with an exercise guide with some basic exercises to do. But a lot of, you know, they talk about trying to use like to build muscle, 75% of your like maximal ability to like move a weight. Like say you could bench press 100 pounds, you'd have to try to do 75 pounds, 3 to 5 reps to really get some bone building capability. Now, not everyone's going to be able to work up to that. That's just general recommendations. You know, I'd highly encourage people, if they're working with a therapist or they have questions, you know, get with, you know, even some certified personal trainers who have background in aging or some specialties, because again, you want to be really careful because you just don't want to jump up into doing heavy lifts. But, you know, bench press, squats, like I say, in some places you can do leg press. You know, so trying to get the bigger muscle groups activated, you don't necessarily have to do a ton of repetitions, but you definitely want to move some weight that causes a little bit of obviously strain and taxing on there. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, Mary's asking, are there any exercises a person shouldn't do if they have mild osteoporosis, especially at L1?
You know, that's a great question. I think you want to be careful with a lot of forward bending without adequate, you know, bending through the hip, hinging at the hip. If you're bending predominantly with the low back and the lumbar spine, you could potentially be putting more pressure on it. Same thing with extending. If you're doing any like overhead press or extensions, like overhead, That could be an issue because of the extension torque put on the lower part of the body. So you want to try to maintain that, they call it neutral spine, where your spine is kind of in between flexion and extension. You're trying to hinge and bend more at the hips and the knees. And, you know, again, the back is not designed to be the primary lifter or mover. It's your lower body through the core. So you want to just be careful that you're not doing things that are, you know, putting too much stress at that level, because that's an important level, because that's where the thoracic region and the lumbar region meet. It's called T12. That's the last of your thoracic vertebrae. And again, that's a segment of a transitional segment. So it's potentially at risk if you put too much stress and weight on there.
Melanie, John asked, and I probably can help you with this one. Can you please talk about which vitamins and supplements you suggest and discuss which omegas you should be taking for osteoporosis? Thanks. Let me answer that question, and I'll let John, if he wants to jump in. The philosophy that we have at Healthy for Life, all things being equal, and that means you're not on lots of medications, there's not other issues going on. You can still get all the vitamins that you need. And what are the vitamins? Your basic vitamins. D is particularly for building of bones. A, C, K, so we recommend that through eating foods. I'm a huge advocate of organic food. Why organic? Not because it's necessarily more nutritious, but because you're not putting a lot of chemicals in your body. So if you can avoid heavy doses of vitamins and supplements, and the caveat to that, and we see this all the time, and Steve Weiss is going to be speaking here sometime this summer. Steve is a pharmacist. He'll talk about medication. Medication, and the medical community doesn't always tell you this, is a huge depleter of vitamins in your body, particularly B's, D's, C's, probably all of those. And so eat, grandma used to say, eat my fruits and vegetables. And it really does. That sounds silly in today's world, doesn't it? But it really comes down to, that's really the truth. And in terms of the omega-6, I think I mentioned it earlier, every cell in your body has an omega-6 oil in the cell membrane, and really, really important. If you're on medication, we can refer you to Steve. We also have some information, some educational material here that'll help you understand just what is being depleted when you're on a particular type of medication. And John, if you want to jump in, add anything to that, that's.
No, I think, you know, we don't have a ton of time left, so I don't want to, yeah, that all made a lot of sense to me. You know, I have seen clients here who have been on so much, and they've had an adverse reaction to being on too much supplements, because you got to think your liver and kidney has to potentially process that. And that, you know, that's what really attracted me to Healthy for Life. Because, you know, I've always had people approaching me and saying, hey, why don't you partner with us? We'll help you sell zillions of supplements. And I was always leery of that. And their approach is get the basics. And, you know, if you can get the basics, the foundational things, I know there are patients who need more than that. But again, I think just start with the basics and do that consistently and then see how that goes. That's just my philosophy.
Yeah, and Melanie, we only sell 2 nutritional essential products here, which sounds almost mind-blowing in relationship to other, you know, stores and things like that. But omega oils, we always laugh about that because the founder, the Professor Peskin, will talk a lot about the oils, and Brian will be here in April. You can ask that question again. And then, of course, we also sell a mineral supplement. Why do we sell a mineral supplement? Minerals are the catalyst to make all those vitamins work in the body, including bone matrix and bone building. We do believe here that you're not getting the amount of minerals that you need because of the soil, the condition of the soil. That's somewhat controversial, but that's my belief, and I'll stick to it. I also have no problem with other people having different opinions. So anyway, nice. Thank you for that question. Here's a question from Dave. Any idea how long after stopping Fosamax will the body start to reverse bone loss from that medication?
That's a tough one. I mean, I'm going to have to call my, I have my brother-in-law and sister-in-law are pharmacists. I might punt that to them and get back to Dave on this one, because I'm interested on that, you know, and especially, you know, what my research kind of, or what I looked at when getting this presentation ready was, you know, the issue with Fosamax, while it slowed bone loss, it was the quality of bone. The bone should be turning over. I mean, we should turn over our bone and lay healthier bone. Now, unfortunately, some of those factors in aging complicate that. So when you throw Fosamax into the equation, that's a great question. And Dave, I'll promise you, I'll get you an answer, but I don't know what the half-life, you know, I don't know what that answer is. And it's a great question. It's kind of, yeah, and there's people on it, so.
Okay, any other questions we have for John, or any questions you have for me, anything to do with bone and pain? I'm assuming our audience knows, you know, inflammation creates pain, right? It's the body's way of telling you that you need to pay attention, you need care, you need concern for something that's going on in your body. That's one of the things I've seen with John since I've known him. And I was a patient of John's for 2 months, and not to toot his horn that much, but I had an alignment problem. It was causing me knee problems. And John gave me, he did an assessment, gave me some exercises. I did them religiously, and then went and hiked in the mountains of Montana without any type of pain or any type of swelling. And so I came to John because I was having pain. I was having, you know, inflammation was obvious because I had some swelling in my knee and also pain. And so it was a pretty simple fix for what it was that I was experiencing, and deeply appreciated. And I had to do the work. I had to leave John and then go do all these exercises that he gave me, and all of them, there were half a dozen. And the outcome of that was worth every minute of it, because I got to hike in Montana. I got to call my grandson, who was 4 years old, from the top of a mountain in Montana and show him the camera. That's why we do health. We do health because of longevity. We do health because of fun. We do health because of, as we age, spending time with our grandkids, picking them up, going for bicycle rides. My grandson is I weight lift with him, and it's wonderful to be able to pull that off.
Thank you, Tim. Hey, there's a couple questions on protein. Can you scroll down? Do you see, I see a couple more questions, I think.
Yeah.
If you want to take that one on protein.
Yeah, Mary, how much protein are you recommending? Mary, if you Googled that, I believe the current, for women, somewhere between 45 and 55 grams of protein a day. And for men, it's a little bit more than that. And, you know, it's kind of comical in today's world. Why do men have to have more protein? I've never been able to answer that, Mary. But 45 to 55. The whey protein product that we sell here, each scoop is 15 grams. I had one yesterday morning. I do 2 scoops, so I'm starting with about half of the protein that I need. And of course, protein, meat, fish, chicken, nuts, avocados, eggs. For my vegan and vegetarian friends, they are pretty sharp and they know how. We're meat eaters here. Carrie Rush, who will also be speaking this sometime this spring. Carrie's an incredible lady who runs Fresh Cafe, and she's the wheatgrass lady. She's a vegan, and we get along just fine. Nick Wallace, who was here a couple of weeks ago, he and Carrie are very good friends. And so the vegans and vegetarians have to find their protein another way, but I do it through meat. I hope that answers your question. Gay asks, how often would you recommend a bone density test? That's a great question. I'm 69, and I know it's been at least 10 years since I had one, and had one done. And was it very good then? I do take calcium supplements, vitamin D, and a multivitamin. John?
Way to go. She's doing a great job. I would say, I think from my research, it's every 2 years. I mean, I would talk to your physician and just say if that's a concern. There's also new lab markers, well, I mean, with anything, there's development. So now they're starting to do some labs that can actually give you a little bit picture of the state of the bone health. But the actual DEXA scan is usually every 2 years. But again, it depends on, a number of factors and, how many x-rays you are exposing yourself to more radiation with that. So I think that's a question. But if it's been 10 years, I would definitely talk to your physician and see what they recommend. But it sounds like you're putting yourself in good shape. You're keeping yourself in good shape.
Yeah, Dwayne asked, where can the poles be purchased? John's been dying. John's been dying for somebody to ask that question.
No, I'm not. It's not a hard sell here. Thanks a lot, Tim. They're just saying, hey, and actually one client, Dwayne might win a set of poles. Actually, one client, we're going to take a drawing after we look at the name and do it. We got to have Tim and Brian do it. We have a secret process to do that. I'll also be offering, someone will also win, and if they don't have to take it, but I'll do a free postural osteoporosis assessment, maybe give you a couple exercises to work on. That's free of charge. But yeah, it depends. Again, if you're a certain height, they're a little more expensive. Usually they're like $129, $139. If you're just standard average height, they're usually $99. But I'm giving a Healthy for Life promotion would be $10 off. So they'll be $89. We'll have them here. We actually, they sold out of a lot of poles and because of COVID. And actually, I just called my distributor because I can't really get them in Canada where they're making them because they're almost sold out. But my distributor in North Carolina might have some sets. So I will look at, providing them. And I want to provide them for Healthy for Life clients because, again, I've been taking the omegas and I really feel like that's helped me a great deal. I see a question from Pam. She says, what other tests are you referring to and who offers them? It's a little bit more kind of newer blood test. Some of your doctors will know, but I know there are certain physicians or actually functional med providers. Who's Lori Miller? What's their name?
Live Well
Clinic. I know they do a lot more testing. So I would always start with your primary doctor because a lot of times Live Well, I'm not sure, how insurance works with Live Well Clinic, but I know they have a doctor over there, and Zach Watkins is a chiropractor doctor who's very knowledgeable in a lot of this as well.
Any other questions that you want to ask John, or you can ask me? We'll give everybody a minute. And also, when we do these, we can do this live with like feedback. Has this been helpful? Is it clear? What could we add to it? How could we? The whole point of all this is that when we started the having webinars and having speakers come, and it's turned into a Zoom call now that everything is with COVID. But the whole point of this is to enhance the well-being of the people that live in Iowa and beyond, and people we care about. And everyone that comes on these webinars, they're deeply passionate about helping. I know John. I've talked to John now for 3 years, and he cares deeply about his patients, deeply about people. I've been a part of Healthy for Life for 23 years as a client, a customer, and now as a health coach here, an educator here. And that's really what it's all about, having people enjoy life to the fullest. That's really the motivation. It really longevity and fun, because we all like to have fun, and we have to have our bodies to do so.
I think there's a question from Robin. Hey, but can I piggyback on what you said, just because I think it's important? I mean, yeah, I mean, COVID's really, I don't want to keep using COVID as an excuse, but like Tim said about the community, I want to be able to have people try out the poles. I have ones I can loan out. I want to have classes when we can have classes safely, lower cost, you know, try to throw in a class with using the poles, because, and again, you don't have to necessarily use the poles to work with me or see me. But again, a lot of times it's a safe method that has a lot of research behind it. And I think if we can get people out there using it, you know, again, people get seeing it, that it's more accepted. I think it would be great. So bottom line is, you know, we want classes, we want to support you guys staying healthy, you're motivated. You know, what tools, what resources, what education can we give you? What expertise can we give you so you feel safer? Because we just want you to be active, and the healthier our community is, I mean, the better it's going to be for us. So we should probably answer Robin's question. She might get mad.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Well,
Robin never gets mad.
Robin asked, does blood pressure medication deplete bone density?
I would say it depletes certain minerals, which I would say contribute to that. I mean, I don't know specifically. I haven't seen that as a contraindication, but what I would do is look at, you know, whatever med you're taking. There's a profile with that, and you know, Steve Weiss would probably be the best guy to ask that question to. You know, so what if that blood pressure depletes a certain mineral? If it's vitamin D, vitamin K, some of those magnesium, phosphorus, some of those really critical, you know, in the relationship of this whole production of increased bone density or bone mass. Yeah, I think it definitely could contribute to it.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what blood pressure medication and all medication does. It's a nutrient depleter. It sucks nutrients out of the body. And nutrients are the energy, are the properties that build the body, that help the body. And in the medical world, it's a trade-off, because if you go to a doctor and you have high blood pressure or, God forbid, hypertension, the doctor is going to he's going to care for you. We're not against doctors, but we have to also be aware that the prescription of that drug potentially depletes nutrients that could ultimately lead to problems, all kinds of problems, of which tonight we're simply talking about one. The best way to do that is go on like PubMed or something like that and plug in the blood pressure medicine that you're on, or whatever medication you're on, and a whole list of things called side effects will come up, and it'll also tell you what nutrients are being depleted, and that way you can supplement, or you can eat more spinach.
I have one thing to piggyback. I know we're at 7:06, so we want to be respectful of your time. Hopefully you guys can see the screen. There's a bone builder exercise guide. Trying to scroll through that. That gives good examples of strength exercises, some postural components, also balance exercises. It gives you a chart. So you can start to track it. So again, I don't want you to think urban poles were the only thing that we talked about building bone. There's many other exercises you can do. We just kind of highlighted that because it was somewhat simple. But if anyone doesn't want this emailed or sent out to you, and maybe we'll figure a way to post it so you can just go and download it if you want. I think it's a good resource tool for you. So I just wanted you to know that.
Yeah, and this will probably be our last question. Although yeah. I saw a question from Paula, and I believe I know Paula, and Paula's asking how to get an appointment for the polls. And Paula, you can either call me, or John's going to put up his information and come, and John will walk you through. He does a great job of educating you if you're interested. And you make mention, I've been talking about these polls. I have this poll. My partner in life, Robin, has these polls. And of course, we really enjoy them. Plus, we believe they're obviously beneficial. The last question, which is from Dave. And
Dave Peterson.
Here, this is an interesting question.
Oh,
and
Lord.
I think I know who this is, but how does carrying the weight of the world affect osteoporosis? And that is a phenomenal question. I'm glad everyone is still staying online. How does carrying the weight of the world affect osteoporosis?
Tim, can I answer that?
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, smart aleck. We want to see your answer. But, I think this is summarize it. Tim talked about inflammation, but, and I know this is kind of a facetious question, but with COVID, with everything going on, stress definitely impacts the body. We all know that. It definitely increases production of cortisol. Cortisol, while short term is great if you're trying to run away from a lion, long term, it's going to break down muscle tissue. It's going to break down bone. It's going to affect everything. And so try to stay, have fun, try to laugh a little bit, and go home and hug your loved ones, especially you, Dave.
And Dave, if you could find a beautiful area that you might move to or might live, it might be mountains, could be a ski resort close by.
Yeah.
There could be like rivers that run through it. That would help you an awful lot with that question. All right, everybody. It's wonderful to have you tonight. Boy, time flies, and thank you for your questions. They're always good. And John will be here. He lives right next to us. You can call me here. Next month, Andy Nish, Dr. Nish is going to be speaking. I think that's Tuesday, March the 9th. And Andy will be speaking. We're going to stay with immunity, and we're going to stay with vaccines and COVID. And Andy's a doctor who will talk you through all that. A great guy, and everybody, I think a lot of people on this call have heard him speak. So thank you for coming, and we'll see you soon.